Heyo, welcome to the Industry Idiots podcast. Turns out you're listening to this week's episode because starting from today, we are dropping the Patreon intro and now we are going to bring the new episodes live every Tuesday immediately for everyone. So thank you very much and enjoy this episode. Bye.
Hello, new episode of Industry Idiots podcast. And today we have another guest.
Yeah, we have an esteemed guest, master level designer of action games, right? Mitja, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I can do that. Been in the industry since 2008, roughly, and been around quite a while. Worked in Slovenia at first, then Croatia, a bit in Russia, Finland, and now I'm in Sweden, currently at Machine Games. And the most recently released title that we did was Wolfenstein Youngblood, which turned 1 year old yesterday.
Yes, the big
anniversary time.
Exactly, it's awesome. And how have you guys feeling? Sven, how are you? Mitja, how are you?
Yeah, I'm quite good. Bit of vacation, but of course we can't travel anywhere, so just chilling, taking it easy.
Are you also working from home?
We are working from home. Yeah, it's been about 4 months now. It's best to keep everyone safe, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, for sure.
How about you, Sven? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very good. Been taking a little bit of digital time off in the last week, but also try to work a little bit on the games backlog and actually started playing Far Cry 5 2 days ago, which I put off for 3 years after buying it. I don't know. I didn't feel being in the mood for playing that game. But actually enjoying it quite a lot. So that's what I've been up to.
What are the other Far Cry games you played before?
The last one before Far Cry 5 was actually Far Cry 3, I think. I skipped 4 and Primal.
Okay.
Because I wasn't as much into the Primal setting and not sure why I didn't buy the 4th. But Far Cry 3 and 5 are basically the ones I've played the most by now. And yeah, so the Far Cry formula itself is very nice. I like uncovering the different sections of this open world map and then going over the areas and unlocking them bit by bit and then seeing what you can discover after each corner. It's very interesting.
Far Cry has always been amazing with these kind of things, I think. But first of all, we awesome that you're here, Mitja. It's really cool that you found the time to join us in this little hangout session. That you're sharing your knowledge with our listeners. That's super cool of you to find the time. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's nothing.
There's something personally that I'm interested in, if you don't mind me asking, because Sven, you're producing in your team, right? As well as many hats indie team, and I'm also leading the design team in my indie studio. So I would be interested in knowing about or learning about your leadership experience because you've led teams in AAA studios, right? On big productions.
Yeah, of course. I've been lead here now for a bit over a year. And before that, also I have some experience at my first company, which was way smaller. But my leadership style, I would say it's quite relaxed, I like to put trust into people. And of course, sometimes that might not be a good approach, but I have a lot of really talented designers on my team, right? So I know that if I trust them, that they won't disappoint me. But when I say that I trust them, it doesn't mean that you just do whatever you want, right? Of course, I have to be there to guide people through the process and sometimes nudge them in different directions. But I am absolutely against micromanaging. It's not an approach I like because we work in our creative industry, right? And if you're a designer, but also if you work as an artist or programmer, you want to be able to express yourself, right? So I feel you are working in a creative industry, you're working with other creatives. Give them the tools so that they can do what they want to do. Of course, you want them to follow the game's vision, right?
Yeah.
That's the important bit. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, quite a relaxed approach.
So is that more of your, just looking at the kind of if there even is a daily routine, more at looking at other people's work and giving them feedback instead of designing much yourself? Or does that change when you are in a lead position, that you are designing less in an active capacity, or how do you have to imagine that to be?
It depends on the company and project, to be honest. On Youngblood, I transitioned into lead while the project was still in production. So I was a lead, and at the same time, I still kept my levels, right? And I kept working on those. And then on a project that I can't talk about, right? It became more a managerial role. Not so much hands-on work, but more guiding the team. Because as a lead, you will have a lot of meetings. That's what I can say.
I've chatted with someone from Blizzard before, and they mentioned that he had the offer to become a lead or senior lead of an environment artist, and he chose to turn it down because he wanted to continue have hands-on work. Do you feel like you're missing the hands-on work a lot?
Sometimes, but it's also up to me to manage my work in a way, right, that if I want to do something hands-on, I can do that as a lead, right? It's just up to me to manage my workload properly. I don't want to end up in a position where I put too much things on my plate and then I become less effective at managing the team, because that should still be my priority, right?
Yeah.
And I can totally see people turning down lead positions, because being a lead doesn't mean that you're necessarily the best in your field at that company, right? But it's more, the priority should always be the team and not yourself. Like,
you spend a lot of your energy on keeping the team spirits high, even in like stressful situations and everything. Yeah.
It's not up to me to make the best level as a lead. It's up for my team to produce quality content throughout the production, right? So just all across the team, I have to ensure that the quality bar is quite high.
How big is your team anyway at the moment?
With me, it's 11 people.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a lot of people.
Quite a few people, yeah.
Quite a big team. We're still hiring one, but because of COVID situation, it's on freeze at the moment. But hopefully, we will be able to add another person to the team.
How do you think the COVID situation, working from home, has affected your work, like personally? Because for me, like I get more productive, but I think I feel like I get less creative, because a lot of my creativity, especially from like indie lead positions, comes from bouncing things off the team, right, and coming up with concepts and things together. So I'm really missing this face-to-faceness in real life.
Well, first of all, if I can speak company-wide, I'm actually quite positively surprised, because when it started, I was worried that effectiveness will like suffer, but it's not that bad, to be honest. Of course, it's a bit slower, I feel, but it's a trivial amount, right? So things are moving forward. But when it comes to me personally, yeah, I miss being in the office and surrounded by people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even as an introvert, right? I'm introvert, but when I go to the office, I get the energy from other people. You know, they inspire me. It's like you said before, it's a back and forth, right? And you can still have a bit of that over voice chatting with them and things, but it's not the same.
Yeah, because you have to initiate it with like a call or something, right? And in real life, you 1 minute break, you go over to them, look over their shoulder,
stop by the workbench, and then, hey, what's up? Instead of actively calling somebody and stopping them from being productive.
Yeah, exactly. You just turn your chair around and hello, like, can you come over here? But yeah, we'll see what will happen.
You have much more this feeling of being like kind of in the trenches together if you are in the office, to make that comparison a little bit, and it feels much more disconnected, because I think we are all working from home right now. Even though the company I'm working at right now like introduced this interesting model of you can pick 1 day a week to come into the office, but it can't be more than 3 people at once. So you have to be in line with the regulations and stuff and keep your distance to people. But it's nice actually coming 1 day a week into the office and meeting people in person in your work environment again.
Mm.
Keep up the spirit.
Another thing that's a bit more difficult is because, in my opinion, communication isn't just verbal, right? So when I talk to someone, I usually pay attention to how they react, right? Their facial expressions and gesticulation. And when you have only voice calls, you don't really know, right, how they are feeling. You only hear the words they say, but maybe you're missing something, and maybe someone is not agreeing with you, but they will say, yeah, everything is cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the office, you can spot those things and, go talk to them after to make sure everything is fine. But with voice calls, things like that get missed. So
that's also a leadership skill, like having or recognizing these reactions in people. Not everyone has this interpersonal skills of sensing if something is wrong. So it's also cool if leaders have that.
Definitely.
The thing is that I feel like with all these, because in an indie studio, I think it's even more family feeling than, I mean, that's something you don't want to say as a company, of course. You're not a family, yes. But in a sense, you're still an extended family, at least, or some sort of ship's crew, I like to say always. I feel like the longer you are together, the more important and the easier also it becomes to manage your team's feelings.
Definitely.
It feels like there's more managing feelings than actually managing their work.
It's, every person is different, right? And when you first start working with them, you don't really know them. Like, it takes a while, it takes weeks or months just working with them or chatting over coffee or lunch, and then you recognize, you'll see what they are actually excited about. You see what they don't like. You get to know them as a person, and it becomes easier a bit to manage a team if you know really well everyone.
Yeah, you learn how to motivate them and excite them without it coming across as shallow. Like, you know them, and then you know exactly what to say to get them excited about a particular task or thing they want to achieve, right?
You know how to approach them, and okay, we have this thing that we have to make. I have two people available. I know for sure that I don't want to give it to that person because they don't like this kind of work. So, but that person is okay with it. So yeah, it becomes easier, right? Of course, people will sometimes get things that maybe they're not fully excited about, but just trying to please everyone when you have a team of 10 people can be hard sometimes. It's like playing Tetris, like making sure everything fits perfectly.
Yeah, I imagine that's very hard. If there's a quote,
the game in itself, basically.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
There's a quote by Saint-Exupéry who says, I'm just paraphrasing, it's essentially, don't teach someone or don't tell someone to like chop wood or whatever if you want them to build a boat. Don't teach them to glue the planks or tell them to do that, but instead inspire them to long for the sea, right? So to long or be passionate about the goal that you want to achieve.
So I like it.
It's very transferable, yeah, to your work, to our work. As long as they're excited about, what your goal is and where you're aiming at, then they will also do like the more mundane tasks with an equal level of excitement than the other parts, right?
Yeah, definitely. I like this quote. I should look it up.
Maybe I can actually read it so we don't say random quotes here.
Unsourced quotes, how dare you?
But I really love that. I've held a presentation before about my management style, and part of that is always this quote because I love it so much, and it's just so accurate, right?
Do you think that this type of quote works for any type of work you have to do? Will it always be effective trying to be that style of a manager?
The entire job of a recruiter, right, is to find the right personality types for a team, right? So there's still some mixing and matching with personality types. And some personality types, they just, for example, want to work quietly and they're the best at that, right? And then there's some personality types who need to bounce off people, right? Or what do you think, Mitja?
Well, first I want to say that I'm not saying that my leadership style is the best one out there, right? I'm just
but
doing...
low-key we're saying it.
No, I'm just doing what I believe in is the right way. And even with me, I'm a meta thinker, right? I think about what I do on a daily basis. I analyze, and my approach also, changes over the time. But that doesn't mean that I will ever completely switch directions and become a micromanager, right? But of course, there's different projects, different companies, different situations, and you have to adjust, right, based on that.
For sure. And since we're working, as you said earlier, we're working in a creative field, right? We're closely knit, and all of our work is made in a team and is only possible because of highly specialized skill sets of the individual people. I think, that's the right mindset to have. A relaxed leader who inspires his co-workers to, perform.
I also want to point out that when it comes to inspiring, I'm not the guy coming into the meeting room with a sword and be like, we'll do this. But I'm honest to the team, right? I tell them, okay, these are the positives, but these are some things that maybe we still have to work on, right? I don't like bullshitting them oh yeah, this is going to be the game of the generation. Because if I don't really believe in that, then they will feel that, right? But if I tell them, okay, this has potential, but of course there are some issues that we have to fix, some things that you have to think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
They accept that because they know that it's what I actually feel.
You also inspire them through your work ethic, I think. Especially you said you're an introverted hard worker, right? I think just seeing you pump out these amazing levels is already inspiration enough for most of your teammates. And then you come in and bring your expertise as a leader as well. I think that's a very good combination to have.
It's a balance when it comes being a lead, right? Because of course you don't want to be a lazy guy. You want to be good at the work you do. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you also don't want to give the perception that people have to crunch. So you also have to keep that in mind and don't always work for 16 hours or something like that. You have to set an example, right? Assure the people that it's fine if you stay eight hours. If you're doing your job, that's completely fine.
Do you guys employ producers, or are you level designers also in charge of?
No, we have producers, and a good producer is a really good thing to have in big projects, because they deal with the things that I don't like to deal with, right? Of course, I have to deal with them, but I can handle some of the scheduling, milestone planning, let's do it together. And then it's up to the producer, right, to remind me occasionally we're missing something, or
the deadline is coming.
Yeah,
the deadline was last week.
We have to record voice lines in 3 days. Okay, good.
That's awesome. I found a quote, by the way. It's, if you want to build a fleet, don't drum up people to collect wood and assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the boundless immensity of the open sea. It's by Antoine Saint-Exupéry. I really like that.
Very poetic.
Sven, did you have some questions for Mitja about level design, or, just qualities of a level designer, given your current position as well?
Maybe something that ties interestingly to Mitja being a lead himself. It's I'm always imagining or asking myself, how involved are you as a lead in the overall team building process from a recruiting perspective? You're of course probably also involved in picking the people who are together with the recruiter, picking the people for the team, but I'm always wondering, what are your personal qualities you are looking for? Not maybe what's best for the company, but what you personally would want from a team member joining your team.
Yeah, let's start with the first part of the question. At Machine Games, I'm very involved when it comes to hiring, right? So, and it's really good to be in this position that the final word is mine, right? Of course, a candidate will go through multiple stages when they apply.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to HR, then me and other level designers, and then various directors at the company, right? Sometimes I really like someone, and maybe other people don't, right? So then it's a more difficult decision to make. But it's good to be in a position where, in the end, it's up to me, and it's a choice I live with. But so far, so good. You probably follow Yuli on Twitter as well. He does a lot of great work.
For sure.
And Andrew maybe as well, Andrew Yoder also.
We follow them both, and we interact with them all the time. I had Yuli is sorry, like these names are very hard for me as a German. So he's written something like Julius or something, right? That's Cosmo or
but his actual name is Yuliu.
Okay.
Yuliu.
Awesome, thank you very much.
But it's spelled with an I first, so that's why some people are confused, and that's why he just changed it to Julius.
Okay, that makes sense a little bit.
Makes his own name more accessible.
Yes.
Him and me, we had a design discussion the other night where we chatted until 4 a.m. about it was about a mission in Watch Dogs that he did, and I was just in his DMs asking him a few things about my current thesis, and then we just spiraled into a design discussion. So he's a very cool dude for sure.
I was lucky to find them. Like I use Twitter as a recruitment tool. you just, I spotted them. I saw they were passionate about level design. They were posting a lot of things, a lot of good things, right? So reached out to them, and happy that they are at Machine Games now.
How big is Machine Games anyway? Like in total, just the ballpark. I mean, how 100 people or 500 people?
130, 140 maybe.
Okay. But sorry, I was interrupting, Sven. You were just asking questions about the level design process.
For the previous question you already answered, I think.
Yeah, the second part of the question was, what do I look for, right?
Yeah, personal quality.
Specific personal things you have to look out for, that you're, of course, a friendly guy, that you're open-minded and stuff like that. Or if it's even more technical stuff you're looking for, or expertise in a specific field, do you have something that's where you personally feel like?
What's the secret sauce someone has to deliver? When he says, I love ramen soup, then you're like, yes, this is the guy I need.
Hire this guy for level design. He's the ramen fan.
Is there something funny that you love when a candidate say that to you?
I love it when they say, "Oh, I love Titanfall 2," or "I love Half-Life 2." Right? Okay, we can keep talking.
He likes the same games like I do.
You heard it here first. Write it down.
And then it's no, tell me why you like them. Because it's not enough to like something, right? Explain it to me. What is it? But when I hire, I don't like to give people level design tests. It's I feel it doesn't really showcase how they will work within a team, right? Because how do level design tests work, right? You can't give them the engine because it's proprietary, so you ask them to do something in Unreal or Unity, right? You can't tell them about the game usually, or maybe you can, but they don't have enough info, so you create a very generic example, and then you ask them to work on it for a week alone without any feedback, right? That's not really how games are made, right? So of course, if I was unsure, maybe I would give someone a test, but usually I try to just talk to people. First step is, of course, looking through their professional experience or personal projects, right? To see if there is potential there. Doesn't even have to be for example, at Machine Games, of course, first-person shooters. But if someone didn't work on first-person shooters, but have enough experience in other genres, and then when I talk to them, I see that they understand how to make first-person shooters and that they dabble around in their free time. Like, that's good for me.
So just authentic passion coming through, essentially.
Passion, yeah, definitely, like being excited, but also knowledge, right? Because what is level design anyway, right?
A lot of weenies and landmarks.
Yeah, leading clients.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, there's one thing that you just said that reminded me of the GDC talk from Diablo 3. One of the designers was talking about how they essentially like came up with the design mechanics and systems in that game. And his first point of the GDC talk was avoid big reveals in the team. So that's exactly what you said. Don't wait like with the 1 week of working alone and then showing everything. Like, this is not how games are made, as you said. You're making something and you're constantly showing it to people for feedback, right? And you're not waiting for the big reveal in the end. And you're like, okay, this is what I've been working on. No, like, they're part of the process, and it's important to iterate and be open for all the feedback that's possible.
That's something I learned while being in the industry for so long, right? Because when I was at my first job, it was very difficult for me to show my work. So I kept working on it and alone, right, without letting people see it. It wasn't a case where I was covering my monitor or anything, but I wasn't going around and asking people to check it out, right? But over the years, I learned just show it. I know it's not the best it can be, but that's okay because it's the first pass, right? So tell me what you think. It's not my level. It's not my game. We are working on this together, right?
Yes,
if you have any suggestion, yes. Like, of course, I don't wanna also show something that doesn't make sense at all, right? I have to ensure that my first pass is at least somewhat appealing, at least somewhat in according to the vision. But after that, I realized that it will change, like, and it will keep changing until the game is locked.
Yeah, Sven, you asked me the other day Sven told me about some of the things he doesn't like common design mistakes or these kind of things, like all these misconceptions that people have about the job. What was it again, Sven? Maybe you can ask it Mitja as well.
I was generally more wondering whether, like, if it's a lot about like the overall process thing. I'm always wondering about if you can do one step of the process pipeline too much. Like, for example, planning too much and waiting. This is actually what we just talked about, waiting too long to show it to somebody or not iterate on it enough. Or like, it also aligns a lot with the fail fast mentality that you get as quickly as possible, like feedback on it and make it the best possible thing. So that was the basic question, like if you can do too much at one step in the process, basically.
Of course, again, everyone will have a different opinion. And I have an opinion. Some people might find it controversial, but I don't like to spend too much time on paper planning, especially when it comes to the layout. What I like to plan for is, the experience, what happens, when it happens, the flow through the level, right? But even that will eventually change. But when it comes to layout, depends on the company. Sometimes you're required to make like super pretty layouts on paper. I encourage people to not spend too much time, but if someone feels more comfortable doing that, I also don't have anything against it. When it comes to me, though, it's more like it's good to have a starting point, because otherwise you will start your editor and won't know where to begin. But that starting point, it's something that you can draw up in a couple of hours, right? And it doesn't have to be too complex, because being good at drawing doesn't make you a good level designer. Of course, you can be, right, but it's not essential skill as a level designer. Players won't ever see your pretty drawings. They will play the game, and that's the only thing that matters to them.
Have you seen Tommy's tips on Twitter? Like he's drawing the level design tips as well.
He does a really good job with those. I wish I could draw like him, but I can't. I just scribble.
It certainly helps to get like a point across if you want to communicate something. If you're able to draw what you're trying to pitch, then
definitely. But it can also be a trap, because you can have someone that's really good at drawing, right? And they will create this amazing 2D layouts, and everyone will see it and, oh wow, this looks great. But then you actually try to recreate it in 3D, and it does work for the game you're making, right? So what was the point of creating this amazing drawing? But again, yeah, I wish I could draw really well, but I don't, and it doesn't make me any worse of a level designer, I feel.
Yeah, I think all the game design positions, including level design, are like a spectrum. You know, you can still be a great level designer if you can't draw, and you can still be, for example, a great game designer even if you're not able to, I don't know, create the most complex prototype of, I don't know, an action-based climber or something like Assassin's Creed, right? As long as you know where your strengths lie and you use them to do your work efficiently, I think you're golden.
Yeah, like you said, it's a spectrum, right? And that's where a good team composition comes in, because you want to have people on the team that are really good at scripting. You want to have some people that are really good at making layouts. You want to have some people that are more like focused on planning and so forth. And then as a team, when it comes together, it's much easier. But you can't expect to have everything in one person. It's
unrealistic.
Yeah, it's unrealistic.
Well, that's
together you can form the whole and not be the whole yourself, basically.
Yeah, we're getting very philosophical.
Yes.
Should I go grab a bottle of whiskey? And
it always happens.
Go ahead.
Yeah, always feel free to hydrate yourselves in whatever way you feel you see fit.
No, I'm good.
I played some Dark Souls the other day, and then got into a design discussion about Sekiro and difficulty curves, and that if there should be difficulty options, because in our studio, like, we're making a roguelike and we do not have a difficulty option. So it's an intended experience is one intended experience, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about, games difficulty, and if they should have ones that can be chosen?
It's not a simple question to answer, because there are two parts to it, right? Of course, as an author, you want to create a certain experience, right? And in this case, I don't think it's necessary for a game to have difficulty options, right? If you're aiming to create a very hard experience, go for it, right? Doesn't make it bad. But the other part is accessibility, right? And you have people with disabilities, and you don't want to exclude them, and therefore having some options to modify the difficulty is always good, right? So it's quite tricky.
Yes, there's always the question: who are you exactly balancing the game for? Like, do you have always a specific person in mind when you're making a game? Okay, this is like our in marketing, they have like these personas basically. Do you also have like example player personas you're balancing the game for each difficulty setting, or is it more like a gut feeling thing?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, throughout the years, I am starting to focus more on designing things that I enjoy myself, and not try to think too much about the player, right? Because I don't really know if, like, this is a game for a hardcore gamer, give it to a hardcore gamer and they won't like it, right? I don't really know how they feel. I know how I feel about the things I'm designing, and I try to design with that in mind, right? So, but maybe some people will say, "Oh, that's not the right way to do it," right? So, I don't know. It's a tricky one.
And what you said just reminded me of. Have you seen or do you know about Gravity Falls, like the cartoon show, the comic, like a Western cartoon show, Mystery Shack? It's very popular, a little bit like Rick and Morty, but not in that kind of humor. But it's this very lovely like show.
A little bit more child friendly than Rick and Morty, I'd say.
Yeah, it's Gravity Falls, and
maybe I watched it.
could be. And the creator of Gravity Falls, Alex Hirsch, sorry. Alex Hirsch.
Oh, it's the other one, yeah.
Whenever he is asked, who looks like a children's show, but it has very dark themes and explores a lot of like interpersonal problems and all it's packed into a very beautiful package. It's a little bit like Adventure Time. Adventure Time also has these dark themes woven into it. And when he was asked, Alex, why are these dark themes in your children's show? Why are you doing this? And then he said, or who are you doing this show for even? And his answer is always, what do you mean? I do the show for myself. Like I'm my own target group. I don't care who watches it, but I watch it. And this aligns perfectly with what you said. So
you try to make a game for that you hope will sell million of copies. I don't know. Like, I can't imagine how a million different people will feel about the game. So I just try to see how I feel about it, right? And if I'm excited about it while I'm working on it, and I'm excited about it while I test it, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's
it
a good sign.
It certainly helps if you also fall into the same kind of audience who generally enjoy that type of game. So if you're an action fan and design for action games,
yeah, definitely.
I guess it helps.
I try to attach myself to projects that I can be a fan of if I would play them later as a player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually have a game that you worked on that you constantly regularly come back to, or is that something like, oh, I better leave it in the past? It's something I don't want to have to deal with it anymore. It's back in the day.
It's neither of those. I mean, I have a lot of projects that I'm proud of and had fun while I played them after, but it's still not something where I would come back to regularly because there's so many things to play, so little time.
I feel you.
Because a lot of actors have this feeling like they can't watch their own movies, and I'm wondering if like other developers have this feeling, oh, I can't play my own games anymore. I've played it way too much, or I can't see my own work.
Maybe it was like that in the beginning, but you just need to allow yourself to be broken. So watching a Twitch stream of your game a day after release, go for
people
it.
Getting lost, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's a shaft that you have to crouch through, and the pain panel is right there, and there's strong lighting, but people spend 2 minutes trying to figure it out, and you're like, okay.
But people play games differently. I mean, one of the most famous cases of that was that Cuphead reviewer who couldn't get past the tutorial, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, you got to be careful when you ship a game or when you release a game and you watch these streams, you got to be aware that there's, different kind of people who are playing your game. And some,
Of course. But like, it's better to be in a position where you're fine with it than just totally avoid all commentary about your game, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Would you say that you are a fan of action games though? Like what like if you're not working and you have day off, what do you play?
I mostly try to play action games like first or third person shooters, or how do you call them? Stylish action games like Devil May Cry and things like that, action RPGs. But like throughout my life, I played so many games, and it's becoming increasingly harder to find something that just pulls me in. It's I saw so many different games and played so many different games, and now I'm always like looking for the next rare unicorn that will actually grab my attention.
Have you made the jump into VR yet?
No, I don't own a headset yet. I wish I would, so I could play Half-Life Alyx.
It's
But
amazing.
I don't wanna spend so much money just for one game, though.
But you're enabling the future. You're paving the path.
I'm not sure if that is gonna be 100% of where the future lies. I'm pretty sure that both regions will 100% coexist. That you will have the super hardware immersive thing of VR, but like the relaxing thing on the couch where you don't want to wear a headset, where you just don't want to have all the peripherals around you and attached to your body, that will still continue to exist.
Definitely, and it can coexist, right? And you have a mobile game market as well, and all three can coexist together.
And the mobile game market is by far the biggest of all the markets. Way bigger than PC and console together, which is crazy to me because I don't play any mobile games. Nothing. Maybe a Dark Room. Do you know a Dark Room?
A Dark Room? No.
I
think it's only called The Room, right?
No. I mean a Dark Room. It's a very minimalized ASCII art, and you have one fire, and you stoke that fire with one button press, and then the fire. It's like an RPG. So that's the only mobile game I've ever, really enjoyed. Maybe a little bit these Hitman Go games. Sven loves them. But
yes.
Other than that, I can't imagine how mobile is. I understand, of course, logically, but just passionately, I can't imagine how mobile is making so much more money and has so many more players than console and PC together. It's crazy.
I think a lot of people are looking for like a more short-term distraction and doing it on the go in between of things, and not like, I haven't met anyone who's like actually sitting on the couch and planning to, okay, I'm sitting now 3 hours on the couch, dedicated. Of course, people probably exist to play that way, but I haven't met any of those who like dedicatedly choose to grind something deliberately.
Hearthstone maybe on mobile.
Fair enough.
That's probably something that people sit down to do there. And the Summoning Wars or whatever, that is very popular. How about you, Mitja? Have you played a mobile game?
To start off, I will use the same sentence I used yesterday in a conversation. You can't bring your PC to the toilet, right? So
depends on how dedicated you are to the task.
But I completely understand the charm of the mobile games, right? Even though I don't play them myself. I am looking forward to Diablo. What will it be called? Infernal, something like that.
Oh, I think Diablo Immortal was the name. Yeah.
Maybe. I wanna check it out, right? But if I play something, I'm usually on my PC. When I go lie down in bed, of course, I browse social media and so forth. But I'm not in the mood to really play anything. And when I'm on the couch, I like to watch a movie or YouTube. So
the interesting thing to me is that there's out there, when a lot of people looking at the mobile thing, there's this kind of doppelmoral hypocrisy thing going on, because people are always playing on the go. Like if you look at the Nintendo handheld consoles, there's nothing as different compared to what the smartphones can do now, except maybe a little bit the controls, the buttons, of course.
Yeah, that's not but a little bit.
If you look
that's exactly why, because they have to play on a touchscreen instead of with Joy-Cons or whatever, or sticks.
Maybe the haptic thing makes it more enjoyable, but I don't say like the hardware controls make the game better or worse in that sense. At least that's my personal opinion.
To be honest, mobile games nowadays look amazing, right? Like if you look 10 years back, how they looked, or like 5 years back, it's quite bad. But nowadays, the quality is really high. But, if I want to play something, if I want to immerse myself, if I want to lose myself in a game, I'm going to play on a big screen, right? Desktop monitor. Yeah. So mobile, I tried some games. And like I said, Diablo, I want to try it when it comes out, but just not for me.
So when's gonna be Wolfenstein Android I'm waiting for it.
I don't know.
Probably the wrong game to play on that. But as a counter argument, you of course have Call of Duty Mobile, which is insanely popular.
Oh, true.
So it could work.
Totally forgot that existed.
Well, I'm not saying it could work, right? But that's a decision that's not up to me or my boss,
True.
but it's a publisher decision. So
the thing is, I very much share the sentiment that Christopher Nolan has about his movies as well. You know, he isn't making movies so they come out on streaming. He's not making it for that. He's making it for the cinematic experience. Same reason why he's delaying Tenet indefinitely right now, because he doesn't want to release it on only streaming devices. And I feel like there's the same divide in mobile game content versus computer games or console games. As in the big screen games I see them more as a piece of art, like just in general, like on average, than I see like I don't know, Candy Crush or Kingdom or whatever, all of these kind of games.
I wanna avoid this discussion, to be honest. Games is an art. I don't wanna go there.
Right,
yes, games are art. That's my opinion, but I don't want to go into details about.
Yeah, or we will spark a debate about playfulness and if games are allowed to have narratives, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I just want people who play my games to lose themselves for a bit, right? Have a break from the real world, because when you look at the news and see the state of the world, you're like, it's kind of scary, right? So to give them the ability to escape somewhere else for a bit and have a good engaging experience.
Yeah,
that's what matters to me.
Maybe one quote to close this discussion about what's important about games and if they're art. John Carmack, of all people, said one time that story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not important. And if you look at it, and he's a master of doom, right? So to hearing this statement from someone who's as influential for games history as him, in today's games world, right? Today, all games are big narrative blockbusters, probably like Horizon Zero Dawn, Last of Us, right? These games live from their story and world building
and the cinematicness.
Of course, I'm a gameplay first guy, right? But I don't agree with his quote either, because it depends in the end what you're trying to achieve, right? You can have a game like Diablo 3. And I know some hardcore Diablo fans don't really like it. I had fun with it. It was a nice game to chill with, just jump in and, slash monsters for a bit. Did I care about story there? No, I have no idea. I played through the campaign 5 times. I'm not sure what's happening. It doesn't matter. But
same for me in Dark Souls.
But then you have a game like BioShock or Half-Life or Batman Arkham, and the story becomes more important because it creates a setting, an interesting world, interesting characters, and gives you motivation to continue, and it puts you in interesting situations, right, and interesting locations. So I'm not saying story in games is bad. I'm not saying that all games need a good story. It's it depends on the experience you want to achieve, right?
Yeah. And also, since the player is actually interacting in a playful way with the media, right, with the game, things like the "Would you kindly" reveal of BioShock 1, they just hit you so much harder than they could ever hit you if you're watching a passive series, because you were the one actively being bamboozled, right? So that's something so unique to games, and I would never want to lose that. But of course, there's also games like Tetris which are amazing, but don't need any story to function. Yeah. Sven, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit the previous days about that was more as a result from when reading the book that Max pushed out. What was it, 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago? Last week. And was thinking a lot about combat encounters and spaces in general. And since that That was also a thought that came out of after playing Last of Us 2 and having previously played Last of Us 1 right before that. And the first part is especially notorious for setting combat arenas, in a sense, that when you as a player enter a space, you immediately see, okay, this is 100% gonna be a combat space. And the second part was more able to hide the fact that the area you were entering was a combat arena. So I wasn't expecting it as much as a player when entering that space. And I'm always wondering how you pull that off more, trying to make the space more natural, feel it more real, and then still be able to design all the cover placement and stuff around it to make this feel like a more believable space and not like a arena. That was a line of thought I had recently.
I have an opinion about that, but I didn't play The Last of Us 2 yet. I played the first one back when it came out. And yeah, I agree that in the first game, there were situations, especially at the beginning, where like you enter in space and it's obvious, oh, there's going to be combat here. But based on what I read and watched about the second game, the thing they did is they don't have like clear patterns. So how do you make people realize something is a combat arena? Well, if there's a space with a specific cover setup and there will always be combat there, then it's a combat arena, right? But if you sometimes don't have combat there, right, and then you have combat and not have combat again, then it's not a clear pattern, right? So it doesn't become like this connection to the player, like, okay, yeah, this is a combat space. Another thing I read about The Last of Us 2 is that they don't like separate spaces between puzzle space, platforming space, combat space, right? You can have combat during puzzles, you can have combat during platforming. I saw a clip where someone was upgrading their weapon, I think, and they were grabbed by the enemy as well. So it's like, it's not binary platforming, combat, puzzle, but try to like merge those three types of gameplay together, right, more organically.
Playing with the players' expectations a little bit, so they don't always know exactly what is going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that actually happened a lot of times in the newer ones where I was for sure expecting, 100% this area is so large, there's gonna be a big fight here, and then not much happened, and then I was positively surprised. Okay, the game got me here. I was able to take off the glasses.
That's how you do it, right? Don't have clear patterns. Of course, there are other things that you can consider, like don't always put crates and boxes and things like that. But that's more on the art side. It's when it comes to the design, try to create spaces organically and break the patterns, twist the expectations from the player.
I think going from to touch a little bit on the game you worked on Youngblood, because it was kind of the switch from having Wolfenstein 2 first, which was like more of a linear game, and then you make the switch to Youngblood, where you have like this a bit more open section, and then additionally to that, you also have like this co-op element. So you go from this established patterns in Wolfenstein 1 and 2, where the players kind of expect this type of gameplay from a Wolfenstein game, and then you switch out the formula that have more open space, then you have somebody else playing with you, and then you have to, I imagine, have to take all of that into account as well when you're designing these more open spaces, like place the cover differently, have a different variation of enemies scattering around the levels and stuff.
Yeah, like what I like to say to people, making a game that supports 2 players, it's not twice as hard as making a single player game, but at least 3 times harder, right? Because the complexity it adds with everything from network synchronizations to combat encounters to boss fights. Yeah.
To door frames, like everything has to be made.
Yes, corridors, and even testing it, right? Like you usually end up running around alone, but it's not really the experience of the game. So you have to ask another designer to take some time to test with you and things like that.
One of the hardest things for that, I would imagine, get the scripted set piece moments right. If you have two players and one rushes a little bit more first than the other and then triggers the event and the other maybe doesn't see it. There was also like
you're pretty much forced to have some gates that require co-op interaction to be opened, right?
Mm-hmm. So there is no like someone who is like much quicker than his younger brother, for example, would run through.
It's very tricky indeed. And then when you have voiceovers, some player might be a bit behind. So like, why are they talking about the Eiffel Tower? I don't see anything.
That's true. That makes a lot of sense. But Youngblood was cool. Like, do you feel like the co-op has made you design more symmetrical levels?
Not really. Do you feel they are more symmetrical?
When there's this one specific scene that I have in my mind. It's relatively at the beginning of the game where you're in this diner-like room, and there's the first
on the Zeppelin, you mean?
Exactly. And you come in, and it's like perfectly symmetrical, right? For at least the flow of the level.
No, that didn't have anything to do with co-op. It's more that it fitted the, a Nazi Zeppelin style.
True. Very brutal.
Later on, when you go into Paris and the areas and the Brother Towers, it becomes more asymmetrical.
That's true. When the first is it a hound? Is it a dog or like a robotic dog? When that first one appears on the big plaza with the gate, and you have all these apartments that you can go in at the same time. Yeah, you're right. That's very cool, and that felt supernatural.
What did having two players influence was to provide more flanking roads, right? That was, but they don't have to be symmetrical, of course, and they have to be wide enough, because if you run in and there's enemies coming and there's the other player behind you, you want to be able to run past them and not bump into them, right? So
standing in each other's way, yeah. I imagine it could be a big problem for designing those spaces.
And finding spaces for secrets as well. I mean, I feel like a lot of them found their way in like some kind of verticality. So you had to jump up above a door through like a vent or through a little, you get somewhere with a secret or one of these outfits. And I imagine it's way harder to hide secrets somewhere if like the play space is being explored by two players, because they're much more likely to find things.
It's not really something I was thinking about when we were putting in various collectibles, right? I don't know, like when it comes to collectibles, it's always fun work trying to figure out ways where to hide things. At the same time, you don't want to be an asshole and just put things where they don't make any sense at all.
Did you have any, I'm not sure if you were able to share that, but like any main inspirations? Because playing the game, I always had the feeling that the overall approach to the level design in Youngblood kind of took at least a little bit inspiration from how the Dishonored levels are structured, because they also like provide this player freedom approach that you can approach like these encounters from multiple angles. And I think I had Youngblood kind of gave off that vibe that you wanted to provide these opportunities as well.
Well, it's even more than just inspiration, because, as you know, Arcane worked with us on Youngblood. Not the whole.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, damn. Okay, never mind.
You can see their logo when the game starts. It wasn't it's like it's not the whole studio, right? But we had people from Arcane working with us on it. Working with some of their level designers as well, which was a good experience. So yeah, you are right there.
Then it's obvious.
You have a very good feeling for levels. You don't even need the logo. You just knew from how the game played. Perfect.
Everyone gives the openings.
Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoy those games as well. Like all these that give the player so many paths to choose, right? To go down to fill this level to probably most players. I'm a very stealthy player. I prefer to play stealthy in most of the games I can play stealthy in. And I love cheesing AI and trying to find a way to, like hitman this level, try to go through it as clean as possible. And then there's other players who like to pump up the shotgun as hard as they can and just face roll the entire
Doom
game.
everything.
Yeah.
How did you account for these two playstyles to meet? Like when if your core partner would be a very brutal in-your-face game player and the other one wanted to sneak, is that something that is
nice synergy. I don't think you can account for it.
Yeah, if you have any good ideas how to approach this, when two complete strangers play the game together and one of them wants to be Rambo and the other one wants to be Sam Fisher. Like, I don't know, man. Like,
I'll let you know. I'll
Maybe
send
then-
you a memo. That's
When
It's
amazing.
like this scenario, they're not gonna be friends after it anymore.
that's where communication comes in, and people decide, hey, how should we approach this encounter? Should we try to tackle it in stealth and then see how it pans out, or should we just go in guns blazing? But I, as a designer, right, the game is designed in a way where you can do both approaches, and both approaches should be equally valid in this game. So there are like no other systems there that it's not too hard if you go in guns blazing. It's also not too hard if you decide to go in more stealthily, right? You can cloak yourself and be invisible for a bit. You can throw knives over a distance. You have silencers. So
And these repeating like progression patterns where you throw a knife to kill someone and you can retrieve the knife and you start rotating and these kind of things. Yeah. That was really dope. Well, we're already at the end of our time. The hour flew past. Do you want to, Mitja, do you have anything that you're working on that you want to push or like promote? Anything at all? Closing words?
closing words. Nah, I just hope the community on Twitter keeps doing a great job. It's always nice seeing people, sharing their stuff and sharing their thoughts. And I think we have a really strong community on Twitter.
Oh, for sure.
Be a lot of positive people and encouraging each other. And yeah, I hope people will keep doing that.
Agreed. I'm crying one singular tear for the narrative design community because we're still rather small. But yeah, it's really awesome to see like game design, level design, narrative design thrive on Twitter everywhere, and also now on Discord, right? So cool. And it's really like all the jobs out there compared to game design feels like one big family with all their dark sides away. I mean, we're a big family, and that's pretty cool. Okay, so thank you very much for coming on. It was awesome, and we would have you back any day.
Yes, if you wanna stay in touch and see what Mitja has been up to, you can follow him, of course, on Twitter at Mitja. Hopefully, I'm not butchering your last name now. Excuse me for that. Roskaric, Mitja Roskaric.
Oh, Mitja is smiling. Please tell us how it's really pronounced.
Roskaric.
Roskaric. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, then follow him at Mitja Roskaric. Yeah, and if you want to stay in touch with the podcast, you can follow us at Idiots Industry.
Exactly. So thank you again very much for coming on. This was an absolute pleasure. All right. And as always, bye.
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 Awesome.